on Prime Crime.
Okay, is she breathing?
Yes and no. I don't know what's wrong.
The questions surrounding a 3-year-old girl.
What happened here?
From the intense interrogations.
So I'm gonna be very matter of fact with you. You will be
to the incredible admissions on the witness stand.
Did you lie to the police?
Told them what they wanted to hear.
Hi there, everybody. I'm Jesse Weber, and welcome to Prime Crime. This is where we do a deeper dive into the most high-profile and memorable true crime cases. In 2018, a father drops off his daughter with a babysitter, but it doesn't end with him picking her up.
I babysit kids.
Yeah.
She just dropped her off and all of a sudden she just passed out. The little girl just sleep.
On March 8th, 2018, babysitter Lindsay Partin alerts Ohio police that the toddler she watches suddenly collapsed.
Is she breathing?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Yes and no. I don't know what's wrong.
That 3-year-old girl was Hannah Wesche.
She felt pretty bad yesterday. And she
Okay.
was fine. And then all of a sudden she got out this morning and she walked in and she kind of passed out. She went limp.
After Hannah is rushed to the hospital, Partin, who is a mother herself, is brought in to speak with law enforcement.
So we walked in, she was in front of me, and she went to take off her jacket and just fell forward. And like I said, Hannah, get up, what are you doing? I thought maybe she tripped because I was putting my robe down. I'm in shock.
Right.
I'm in shock.
Detectives need to figure out what exactly happened here, including whether this was an accident.
You know that she's mischievous, Hannah, and that when she's at home with her dad, that he's very busy, and he doesn't get to pay attention.
Yeah. But I'll say, oh, did you fall? Did you jump off the couch again? Because she jumps off the couch a lot.
What happens in these cases is you'll have some type of an explanation, usually an innocent explanation, because we've all been around kids. We all know that kids fall down, they get bumps and they get bruises, and that's something that we've all shared in our common experience.
Yet it's when detectives reveal Hannah's condition to Partin that the interview changes.
Hannah's not doing good. Whatever happened to her happened this morning. And she has a severe brain bleed.
Oh my God.
So what we need is the truth from you.
That is
Because we need to
spirit of
know
God.
how this happened, that way we can treat her.
I'm absolutely telling you the truth. Oh my
Because the
God.
way it's looking right now is that this happened at your house, because we need to find out, we need the
I
truth.
swear to God, I'm telling you the exact truth. We walked in the
From
house
what the
and
doctor's
she
saying,
fell.
she did not walk, she did not talk with this type of injury. None of that is
She did,
possible.
I promise you she did.
They're saying that's not possible.
I believe you're not being honest with us, and you need to come clean with it, because you're going to be a part of this.
10 days after collapsing, Hannah Wesche would be pronounced dead.
These child abuse cases come right down to the observable injuries. Babies, toddlers, they don't just die all of a sudden. They were able to observe things that are pathognomonic for child abuse. In other words, the only explanation for the existence of these observable injuries, retinal hemorrhages, brain swelling, is inflicted trauma.
Partin goes back to the beginning of the day, and she explains something interesting. She says Hannah's father, Jason, brought his daughter over, and she was wearing a hood.
Was he carrying her?
Mm-hmm. Carries her in, has her blanket over her, because it's cold, obviously, right now. You know, to kiss goodbye, whatever. He's not back to get you, just said, okay, bye.
Detectives question whether Jason may be at fault.
Is Jason capable of this? Does he have a temper? Have you ever seen it? Have you ever seen him hit the kids?
No, I haven't. But I have not known him long enough to know that, and I've never even been in his house.
Have you ever seen bruises on her?
Yeah, she's bruised all the time.
Really, it could only be one of two people. It was either Partin or it was him. because they literally had their hands on this child and passed her off within moments of each other.
I just know she's been beat, and that's the cause of her death today.
I would never hurt her.
Jason's telling us that she gets hurt a lot at your house, that she always comes home with bruises.
That's completely untrue. She comes to my house with bruises.
So who do we believe?
I don't know.
Coming up, Partin sits down for a second interview, and it doesn't go the same as the first.
You've gone through every single one of these injuries, and you had no problems telling us about these.
Why lie about this one?
Hi, this is Dan Abrams with exciting news for all of our Law and Crime followers on YouTube. You can now get the live Law and Crime Network with YouTube TV for all of your daily live trial coverage, legal news, expert analysis, and original true crime programs. Subscribe to YouTube TV today, and then locate Law and Crime in the channel guide. And for only $1.99 a month, you can add the network to your bundle. Watch Law and Crime every day with YouTube TV. We put you in the jury box.
This child was beat. This is abuse. They just pulled the plug on this child. This child is dead.
Oh my God.
In 2018, detectives are questioning babysitter Lindsay Partin about the death of her neighbor, 3-year-old Hannah Wesche. Partin claims she was watching Hannah when she suddenly collapsed in front of her. Police, though, don't quite believe that story, considering the toddler's significant head trauma indicating physical abuse.
So I'm going to be very matter of fact with you. If you're sitting here telling the truth, that's great. But if you're sitting here and you're covering and you know things, listen to the words I'm going to tell you. You will be
Yes.
There's absolutely no positive way that this child was sitting down, playing, having conversations, that it absolutely could not have happened.
It is highly unlikely that she would have been able to have been injured the day before, because treating doctors specifically stated that the blows to her head would have resulted within seconds or minutes. She wouldn't have been able to be functioning.
I will look you in the eye. I've never hurt a kid in my life. Wouldn't even hurt my kids. I don't spank. I don't believe in spanking.
Have you ever...
Partin is called in for a second interview with law enforcement. It's here where she explains away Hannah's various injuries.
Yep. That's exactly where she fell, and on her chin. She didn't even, her hand didn't even hit. Like, she just...
So all these small little bruises and the ones on the chin.
Yes, I know about those right there.
That's all from that.
Yes. When she looked up at me and said, "Buddy, can I have donut and couch?" and went to take her jacket off, and she fell on that side.
This is bruised on both sides.
Yeah.
Children can certainly injure themselves in falls. We've all seen it. Every toddler falls down. They have a few bumps and bruises along the way, and yet they're not the same types of injuries. What's the difference is the severity and the number and the location.
So when people fall, you're going to have bruising on the sharp points. If you fall straight forward, you're not going to have bruising over here.
And that's where we're getting, that's why we wanted to come down and fill in some of these holes.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, honestly, a lot of these aren't adding up to a fall in the gravel.
It's at this point when Partin tells the detectives that she left something out of her story about what happened prior to Hannah suddenly collapsing.
So I slipped on her blanket. I opened the door, and we both went down. I was holding her on the left side. When I slipped, it hit her side. I actually hit my head on the door coming down, but she smacked her face, her head really hard on the concrete step. And I fell, and she fell.
So why would you hide that?
I didn't want to be in trouble. I don't know.
At the very beginning, she basically said, I don't know what happened. She just came in and said, couch, donut, and then she collapsed. Well, no, the shortfall that you're describing does not comport with the injuries. Well, now we have the biggest problem for Miss Partin, which is that she's already, by her own admission, caught being untruthful about what happened with the child.
But Partin is about to make an admission that will dramatically affect this whole case.
How does this happen?
I slapped her upside the head.
With what?
My hand. She took all the ketchup out and squirted it into the toilet. And I didn't think that hurt her. I really didn't.
So these were closed fists like uppercuts?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not only does she confess to having abused Hannah, but listen to what she says she did after Hannah's father dropped his daughter off for the last time.
She didn't want him to go to work. And he's like, I gotta go. So he rushed out, and I was like, Hannah, you can't do that. Daddy's gotta go to work.
You shook her?
Yeah. I shook her, and I remember picking her up and squeezing her, and we did fall.
How hard did you shake her?
She was in trouble.
Yeah. And you were angry?
Yeah.
Lindsay Partin is eventually charged with child endangerment, manslaughter, and murder for the death of Hannah Wesche. Yet it's what happens at Partin's trial that further complicates this story.
You didn't know that admitting to shaking Hannah would get you in trouble.
No, I didn't think it would.
When we return.
No. The bruises on the chest.
Do you see the pattern here?
Yes.
Deny.
I did not touch her chest.
So look.
But I was mad that day.
Let's.
In 2019, Ohio babysitter Lindsay Partin stands accused of killing 3-year-old Hannah Wesche, a child who was in her care when she passed out and later died at a hospital. After Partin admits to investigators that she had physically disciplined Hannah, namely by hitting and shaking the toddler, she's charged with murder, involuntary manslaughter, and child endangerment. Partin's trial began in April of that year.
We don't know exactly what happened here. We only need to prove that Hannah was abused and or that the defendant violated her duty to that child.
Partin's defense argued that she didn't cause Hannah's death. In fact, they say the toddler collapsed within a minute of having been dropped off at Partin's house, and it's possible her injuries could have resulted from something or someone else.
So she can't say it was 20 minutes, she can't say it was an hour, she can't say days.
Because that's reasonable doubt. That says this child was injured somewhere else, not in the 30 seconds, not in the minute that Lindsay Partin had her.
The problem with autopsies and most forensic evidence is we don't know how the trauma was inflicted. So that's why that's always a battle of the experts.
Do you have an opinion to a reasonable degree of medical certainty as to whether or not Hannah could have been walking or talking or behaving in a normal fashion after receiving the injuries that resulted in her death?
She could not. This is a tremendous brain injury. This is really serious.
If the state's pathologist had testified as to a significant or severe force, you would disagree with that?
Yes, I would disagree with that.
The autopsy shows, beyond any doubt, that this child died as a result of homicide. This child died as a result of inflicted trauma. The defense experts testified that these injuries, although they do exist, didn't necessarily manifest themselves in one certain time frame that you could pinpoint of who was responsible. So that window of when the injuries might have been inflicted is open.
In this case, I do not believe it was immediate for the simple reason that the impact does not impress me about being the type of impact where I would have coup and contre-coup and fractures and big subdural and all that. Didn't happen.
If Partin didn't inflict these injuries, then who did? The defense pointed the finger at Hannah's father, Jason Wesche.
You immediately shoved that thing into reverse and got the heck out of the driveway?
Yeah, when I'm leaving for work, yes ma'am, I started
Is
my
that
car.
when Hannah fell into the back seat and hit her head?
Hannah never fell in the back seat.
Because if she fell in the back seat, climbing over the front seat and hit her head, and it killed her, then you'd be responsible. Isn't that true?
I assume I would, yes ma'am.
I think the defense had to go with the most easily blamable person, and a lot of times when there is violence, it is within spouses or within a parent. And we also know that he had observed some strange behaviors from her, in addition to some of the things that he said that were not true in terms of going out to get milk. There were several details that wound up not being accurate.
Today is the first time you've told Detective Turner in this room that you didn't go get milk the night before, but instead you went to Fairfield?
No ma'am.
When did you previously tell him that?
When I found out, Monday morning when we were in court.
I indicated that your whereabouts for the night of the 7th of March were very important and suspicious. Doesn't have anything to do with that?
No, ma'am.
You lied to the police about milk and Walmart, correct?
I was confused, yes, ma'am.
I found Jason to be relatively credible. He did have some inconsistencies with minor facts. They can be explained by the trauma he was going through missing his child. Overall, he made a good witness.
Up next, the jury would get to hear from another witness, maybe the most important one of all, Lindsay Partin herself.
Ms. Partin, did you think that you could slap her across the face?
I have known other moms to do that.
That's not what I'm asking.
So I didn't think that it was an issue as a type of discipline.
Think all court shows are the same?
We're talking about your father. Guilty or not guilty?
Guilty.
Think again. Judge Caprio rules with common sense.
I was having contractions. I was rushing to the hospital.
Inspector Quinn, what does justice demand? Jail?
And compassion.
I'm going to take the circumstances into consideration.
The best court experience I've had.
Clearly, Judge, he's been in a court before.
Get caught in Providence.
Listen. Knowing that we know that, what happened here?
I just slapped her upside the head. He went like that.
Close.
Yeah, like that.
In 2019, Lindsay Partin is facing charges of murder, involuntary manslaughter, and child endangerment out in Ohio. The prosecution claimed that Partin killed 3-year-old Hannah Wesche by physically abusing her during a babysitting session. Partin had even previously admitted to striking and shaking the toddler. The defense, though, argued that Hannah died due to injuries she sustained before being dropped off at Partin's home that day, even throwing suspicions on Hannah's father, Jason. In the end, it was Partin herself who tried to convince the jury of her innocence when she took the stand.
Lindsay, did you cause harm to Hannah Wesche on March 8th?
I did not.
Why did you tell the police that you did?
Because I wanted to protect everybody.
Ms. Partin took the witness stand, and she had a very tough road to hoe because she had to explain to jurors why she herself shouldn't be believed. She, by her own admission, was untruthful during the interrogation. If she can lie to the police, the prosecution is going to say, well, then she can certainly lie to the jurors.
Why didn't you throw Jason to the wolves, to the detectives on March 8th?
Because I care about him. He was my friend. Wanted to protect everybody. I didn't want anybody to be in trouble.
Why would you want to protect someone who did this to a child?
I always think the best of people.
When she told jurors that she was protecting people, she's doing that at the expense of the child because she's not protecting the child. If she wanted to protect the child, she would have told the truth about who actually did this as soon as it happened.
Partin claimed that police coerced her confession.
We know what this is consistent with.
Yeah.
Look at me. We do this for a living.
No, I know.
Okay?
I know.
This is not the first 3-year-old that we're staring at pictures about, okay? It's not a fault. And you know what caused this.
They didn't care what I had to say. I felt pressured. I felt forced. I wanted to protect everybody. I felt bullied.
Did you lie to the police?
I told them what they wanted to hear.
I did not think that the interview was overly suggestive. We see many different types of police interviews, and a lot of them have very obvious elements of duress. This was just not one of those examples, specifically because she actually testified to details that were not given to her by police.
When it was time for the prosecution to cross-examine Partin, they didn't hold back.
You didn't Google how to make a bruise look better, how to make a bruise feel better. You Googled how to get rid of a bruise. Is that right?
Yes.
You indicated that it was your belief you could physically discipline Hannah.
Yes.
You could squeeze her middle.
Yes.
Was it your belief that you could hit her on the face with an open hand?
Yes.
And was it your belief that you could hit her on the chin with a closed fist?
Yes.
And was it your belief that you could shake her?
Yes.
It's always difficult for a defendant to decide whether or not to testify at trial, particularly when there are statements that are being used against them. So the decision to testify was risky, and in this instance, it did not pay off. She universally came off very poorly on the stand, appeared to be condescending. I think here it was a mistake to testify.
As to count 4 of the indictment, involuntary manslaughter, we, the duly impaneled jury, do find the defendant, Lindsay Partin, guilty, accompanied by all 12 signatures. As to count 5 of the indictment, endangering children, we, the duly impaneled jury, do find the defendant, Lindsay Partin, guilty. As to count 6 of the indictment, murder, we, the duly impaneled jury, do find the defendant, Lindsay Partin, guilty. All 12 signatures.
The jurors gave Miss Partin an opportunity to be heard, and they just didn't believe her. The testimony that she gave ultimately was totally inconsistent with the physical, observable injuries on the child, and the jury's verdict reflects that.
I do sentence the defendant, Lindsay Partin, to a lifetime imprisonment with parole eligibility after 15 years.
It's hard to predict whether Miss Partin's going to make parole. Parole boards don't often like to parole people who have committed very violent offenses like this, but if she behaves, tries to better herself, and takes responsibility, she may be able to convince the parole board that she is rehabilitated.
It's something that's in my mind every single day. Time doesn't make anything easier. It makes it rougher. Try to go day by day. I was relieved that that part was over and she was convicted. I'm glad she went to prison, obviously. We hope that she does not make parole in 2037. I didn't see her testimony in court. I was not allowed in the courtroom at that time. It's bewildering. I don't understand how anybody could think that that's okay to do to a child.
It is so hard to think about Hannah Wesche and what she went through. And it's even more scary that Lindsay Partin almost got away with it. Having said that, it seems that Miss Partin is going to remain locked up until her parole hearing, because at the time of this taping, the 12th District Court of Appeals upheld her convictions, and the Ohio Supreme Court declined to hear her case. That's all we have for you here on Prime Crime. Leave us your comments on Instagram and Twitter with the hashtag PrimeCrime. As always, thank you for joining us. And until next time, be safe.